shuffle those up good.
Okay.
And while you're shuffling, I want you to think of any card that you want. Okay? We're going to play a little bit of the game. Alright. So whenever you're happy, what is the card that you pick?
Ace of Spades.
I do have the Ace of Spades in that deck, so it's a different one. Alright, Ace of Spades. You don't want to change your mind?
Okay, I will change it. 9 of Diamonds.
9 of Diamonds, okay? 9 of Diamonds. Now, I want you to try to guess where in this deck you think the 9 of Diamonds is, okay? You're going to try to guess the position of it, but I'm going to be a little bit nicer, okay? I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to run through the cards really quickly, just so you can quickly see where that card is roughly, okay? Coming a little closer. You guys. What was it you said?
Ace of Spades.
I changed mine.
Oh, no, sorry.
Don't confuse me here. We don't even need that. Okay, you got about how far down it is? You think? Yes or no? What if I cut it? Now where is it?
Still not general area.
Here, how about you shuffle it? So we don't even know. I want to make this feel really magical, okay?
Okay.
Just shuffle it up totally. Maybe flip it over so you don't see where the card goes. And while you're doing this, I want you to think of that position, because you're feeling the cards now, so you can get a sense of where it might be. Just make sure they're the same direction.
Oh.
Yeah, but so think of a number where you think that 9 might be. Of a number from 1 to 52, yeah. Get that spot. Oh, no peeking.
Okay. I am peeking.
So you have a number?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Here's what we'll do. Actually, no, here, I don't even want to hold these. You just hold me in your hand. Hold me in your hand like you're about to deal one, okay? Face the other way. Yeah. You have that number? Mm-hmm. Deal that number of cards into my hand, okay? Pick a big number. Alright, you sure? You don't want to go one more?
I'm done.
Alright, watch. You can square these up. And I wasn't counting. How many cards did you deal here?
37.
This is 37 cards, right? I won't do anything funny. What was the card? 9 of Diamonds, right? And you could have said any card, you could have said any number. How crazy would it be?
What?
Show the camera. Show the camera.
What?
What is good, guys? It is Reed, and welcome back to a very, very, very special video. This one is going to be a banger because I'm going to be teaching you guys my any card at any number, my go-to, my favorite, the one that I use all the time to perform. It is one that I created. It is nothing groundbreaking, but that is why it is so good. So as you know, any card at any number is a very classic plot where any card is named, any number is named, we deal down to that number, and the card is at that number. I have about 3 or 4 any card at any numbers that I perform. There's this one, there's Mirror ACAAN, which you guys have seen in my Omega Magic videos. There's iPhone ACAAN, which is brilliant, and you've seen in my Omega Magic videos. And there might be another one, but it's not coming to mind right now. Crusade is a good one if you know that one. Danny Ortiz has a few that I like. But in this video, I'm going to teach you guys SOHACAAN. Now, what does that stand for? Sleight of hand, any card at any number. SOHACAAN. Now, I love any card at any number as much as all the other magicians do. And like I said, I perform several, but this is really my go-to. And here's the reason. When I was creating this, I was really striving to create something simple, practical, and straightforward. You know, a lot of any card at any numbers are great, but it's gimmicked, it's stack work, memorization, too much work, okay? I took a page out of Sean Farquhar's book, okay? With his effect, if you guys know the HG effect, it is great. I would recommend picking it up. This has nothing the same in terms of the mechanics and how it works, but it's the same principle of how I came up with it. I remember watching his video and thinking, you know, that's great. What can I do to come up with an ACAAN like that? This is basically what I've spent a lot of time refining and working on, and this is what it's going to be, SOHACAAN. And so I got to give him credit for some inspiration behind the idea of, you know, I just wanted something that is sleight of hand. Nothing more, nothing less. No gimmicks, no memorization, impromptu, shuffle any deck, anytime, spectator shuffle. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to have to worry about stacking the deck or putting together a sequence or getting my gimmick, or, you know what I mean? Something that is a go-to effect, really strong, and I can do it anywhere, anytime, any card, any number, right? So this is SOHACAAN. Without any further ado, I don't think I have anything left to tell you guys about this effect. It's something I've been working on for a while. It's been through a lot of refinements. I'm gonna give you guys a couple different little variations so you can pick what you like, but we're gonna start with the basic variation, in my opinion, the best variation, my favorite, any card at any number. So here we go, this is SOHACAAN. All right, guys, so this one is very special. This is might be my favorite trick that I've taught on the channel so far. But here's what I want to say. So if you guys don't know, there are sort of 5 pillars of an any card, any number. And the perfect effect, the Burglas effect, as they say, would follow these 5 things. So thing number 1 is that truly any card can be named. Number 2, truly any number can be named. Number 3, the spectator shuffles the deck. They do the shuffling right after they've named the card and the number. The 4th thing would be they get to deal, and usually the caveat is they deal face up, so they get to deal face up. You never touch the cards after they shuffle, of course. And the last thing is that the reveal happens instantly. So after they've kind of dealt and this is their card, there's no waiting, no funny moves, nothing like that, and the card is sort of revealed. So that's the perfect effect of the Burglas effect, but if we're being realistic, that doesn't really exist. I mean, Aussie wins any card, any number, to me is probably the closest that any effect can get to being perfect like that. But obviously it breaks the shuffle rule for the most part. So you know what I mean? If we're gonna achieve an any card, any number, we're gonna have to pretty much break one of those rules. It's just about figuring out which one of those rules you want to break so that you can have a method. So for this, I broke rule number 4, I believe. So I've kept as much of the true any card, any number as possible. They can name any card, they can name any number, they shuffle the cards, they do the dealing, but they don't deal face up. That's going to be one of the caveats. And the cards will be dealt into my hand, okay? It's going to be very fair, very open. I'm not going to do anything funny. Apparently, they're just going to flip the card. They still get to flip it, but the cards will touch my hand after they've shuffled. But, you know, that to a spectator means absolutely nothing. That only means something to us as a magician, and our performance of this trick is going to totally make this trick, you know, fly by and feel like a truly perfect Burglas effect, any card, any number. Not that that matters to a spectator, but the point is, this is really a pure feeling, any card, any number, really great. And I'm going to teach you some presentational tips to make this hit, because a lot of people say any card, any number is not a good trick for spectators, and that I tend to agree with. It's, you know, only magicians really care about it, but there's a lot of good ways to make your spectator care about it and have them realize how impossible this effect is. So let's get into the breakdown, okay? So what do you need for this trick? Like I said, a regular deck of cards, that is it, that is all. No setup, shuffled, anywhere, anytime. And that was one of the most important things with this trick. So, step 1, we're gonna hand out the deck for the spectator to shuffle, okay? They're gonna be shuffling it, and while they're shuffling it, this is when you wanna ask them to name any card that they want. So, they shuffle, they hand you the deck back, and they've named a card. So let's say in our case, they named the 4 of hearts. So they shuffled, they give you the cards back, and they name the 4 of hearts. Now we want to take a pause here. You don't want to go straight into the next step, because that'll make it feel like you're searching for the card, which is exactly what you're doing, but we don't want to make it feel like that. So they hand you the cards back, they've said their card. Now I like to have them name the card while they're still shuffling, because they say it and then they continue shuffling, and we're just trying to get them to almost forget that they've told us which card they want. We want to put as much time between us finding their card secretly and them having named it. So I have them name it really early on. So they're shuffling and I say, name any card you want. They say 4 of hearts. Then I say, perfect. They hand me the deck back and we're here. Now I say, now we have no idea what order this deck is in, right? There are 52 cards in this deck. Your card could be at any one of these positions, but I want you to try to figure out which position your card is in, okay? So one important thing we're doing here is we're setting up the conditions, the explanation. We're making them understand, well, we're starting to make them understand why this trick is going to be so impressive, right? It's very important in any card, any number, in my opinion, that you explain exactly what's going to happen to the audience, because that will help them understand why this is going to be so impressive. So after you've said that, then you say, you know what, I'm a nice guy. I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a bit of a hint as to where it is. I'm going to run through this deck really quickly, and I'm going to just let you see quickly your card, just so you have a rough idea of where it is, okay? Now what we're actually doing here is we're going to cull their card to the top of the deck. Now this might seem scary because they're looking for their card, but with a little bit of practice at the spread cull, go check out my tutorial for the spread cull, you should have no problem doing this right under their nose, and I'm going to give you a few tips on that. First tip is if you spread and see their card right away, what I would do is cover it. So let's say they name the Queen of Hearts, right? So I spread, I see the Queen of Hearts, and I go like that. So all I'm doing there is I'm using these fingers at the back, and I'm pushing the next card over, which is the 8 of clubs, right in front of it. And I just square it up using the thumb here, okay? So as you can see, I spread, and I instantly hide it. There, I hit it with a couple of cards that time. It doesn't matter, as long as it's not in view. What we're going for there is that they don't see their card, because now we have a beautiful moment. We know where their card is, and we don't really have to keep spreading the deck. So we'll say, I'll give you a hint, right? You say, I'll give you a hint. You start to spread, you see their card. Now we're gonna cull, shift to the bottom and say, actually, you know what? That wouldn't be very magical if you knew. I think it'll be a little bit more magical if I don't tell you exactly where your card is, okay? So it's a very simple. Let's go with the 9 of clubs here, okay? So they say 9 of clubs, you say, all right, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a hint as to where your card might be. So I'm gonna go through the cards, you're gonna get to see it really quickly just to have somewhat of an idea of where it might be, right? So I'll spread through the cards like this. Actually, you know what? I think it might be a little bit more impossible if we don't do this. And I think we all wanna see something a bit more magical here, so let's do that instead. And in that moment, I've called their card. I already have it under control. And the reason I like to do that is because, yes, I just said I'm gonna give them a hint, but in a second, as you're gonna see, we're gonna shuffle the cards again anyway and destroy that hint. Like, this is kind of a gag moment almost. So if we can kill that right away, it's gonna take away any suspicion that we were like controlling the card during this moment, because they won't even remember that we did this. If we just open the spread and say, you know what, actually, never mind. We don't need to do that. You know what I mean? In a lot of cases, it's not gonna play this way, but that's a good first tip, a good idea. So you don't even have to cull the card right away. You're just, if you see it, the second you see it, you're gonna square up over top to block it out of view. You can pause, you know, go like this and say, actually, never mind, and then you're gonna cull the card and shift it to the top, okay? So that's maybe best case, you would say. Or, well, I suppose best case is if their card was already on top, but you probably wouldn't know that. I guess you could take a peek if you wanted. Most of the time, this is what it's gonna be like. Remember, you say, I'm just gonna give you a bit of a hint. You're gonna get to see your card, but I'm gonna go quick. I don't want you to have too good of an idea of where it is, okay? And just in that, and I say, all right, did you get it? And in that, I've culled their card to the top. Now, if you're not as good with the cull, there's no harm in pausing at their card to set up for the cull, which sounds contradictive, but it makes sense because we're telling them we're showing them their card. So it kind of makes it seem like we've stopped at their card to help them see it. So what you could do is, if you're not great at the cull, you come through and you could say, and you see how it doesn't look like I even did anything, yet I culled it to the top. But what I'm actually doing here is I'm spreading, I'm pausing for a second at their card, wanting them to see it. I want them to see it. So then they'll kind of, they'll still see it, and then they'll start processing, okay, how far down is it? But they won't be thinking about what I'm gonna do next. Now that I've paused, I can set up my thumb on top in the position for the cull. I can start to push this card over top to cover it, and I can then pull with my fingers, and I can do that quite slowly. And because I've set up and I'm already in position like very quickly, right? I can just do that cull right under their nose perfectly and fairly slow, but at the same time, the action of the cull will be quick because I'm ready to go into it. So again, what that would look like is I say, I want you to see your card, just get a little bit of an idea of where it is, okay? And yeah, and you see how it didn't look like I called their card. I didn't look like they paused. Plus, once they see the card, they're going to be focused on how many are left, right? So they can get an idea of where it is in the deck. So That is a great tip if you're not as good as the call, but how it normally looks for me is I say, you know, I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna let you see your card, and I'll go through, and I'll cull it, and I'll keep going, and I won't really do that pause, and it'll be on top of the deck. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're just culling their card to the top under the ruse of we're helping them out a bit. Their goal, it's like a game. Their goal is to guess where their card is. We're giving them a little bit of a hint. And that's the plot I love with this trick because it totally justifies everything. And it doesn't have them grilling us to get control of their card. They're focused on where is my card approximately so I can try to win this game, right? Which is a great moment. Now that their card is controlled to the top, what you don't want to do is this: spread, close, and turn the deck over. Okay, what you want to do is just spread, you've done your call, and you just close the deck, and you're going to immediately shift that card back into a gambler's cop. I'll just riffle off one, or I'll actually just do a pinky pull down, get a break, and instantly shift it back into gambler's cop. So now I'm in this position, and all it looks like to them is we spread the cards. Now they have a rough idea of where their card is, and I'm ready for the palm. Now I say, okay, do you have a little bit of an idea where it is? Maybe they'll give a guess or something, and then I say, you know what? How about now? Do you know where it is now? And maybe they'll have an idea, or maybe they won't. But what we're doing here is we're trying to make the trick seem more magical again, because if we did an any card, any number, and they had an idea of where their card is, it'd be cool, but not as impressive. So we're almost, at first we're using the ruse of we're helping them, and then we're like, you know what? We want this trick to be magical, so forget that. So what I like to do is, it's a nice little subtlety with the palm, is I just do a swing cut while the card's in palm. Okay, so that's just kind of like a swing cut. And, I say, do you have an idea where it is? And they'll be like, yeah, it's roughly in the middle, roughly near the top. And I'll say, okay, how about now? And they could kind of follow that action maybe, but it definitely, at this point, it's like, okay, we're disturbing the order. And then I can go into saying this, you know what, actually, let's just make this more magical. We want to see something impressive, actually just shuffle this again. Let's see something very impressive. Let's just go for it all, see if we can get a miracle. Hand it out to shuffle, and they shuffle it once again. We have their card palmed. So this does a couple of nice things, right? If we think about the trick from the beginning, at first we start by saying, you're going to try to guess where your card is in the deck. I want to be a nice guy. I'm going to give you a bit of a hint. I'll go through the cards quickly to see if you can see where your card is. Do you have an idea? How about now? Actually, you know what? We want this to be as magical as possible. We want something really cool to happen. So here, just shuffle it again. We'll just go for it all. Just, try to make a real miracle happen. So it's very quick, but in that little moment, everything's justified. Why we're spreading the cards, why we're handing the deck out for a shuffle. And it just makes it feel like, you know what? Yeah, let's actually make this really impossible. And that's what people are going to want to see. So now they're going to shuffle the deck, and this is great. They've named any card, they've shuffled the deck, and now we are going to take the deck back for a split second, but they're not going to remember that we take it back. So now this card is face up in a gambler's cop, and they're shuffling, okay? While they're shuffling, I say, I want you to really feel those cards. Try to establish a connection. Your card is anywhere in that deck. You're shuffling it. I just want you to start to let some numbers come into your mind. Any number between 1 and 52, okay? I want you to start to focus in on one number and then settle. Just settle on one number. Let one number come into your mind, okay? And I don't have them tell me it out loud. That's another great thing about this trick. One thing that I am very big advocate of in any card, any number, and my theories towards it, is that if you can have them not say the card or say the number out loud, to spectators it feels way more amazing. Even if you have to sacrifice the amount of choices or the availability of options or whatever, they won't notice, and it'll be way stronger if they don't name the card. A great example is forcing the card, right? If you can do like a nice force and you instantly hand the card out for them to shuffle, to them, there'll be no way that you know that card. So at the end, when you get it, it's 10 times more amazing. Even though you're doing a force, which to magicians, that's a big no-no in any card, any number. But I think that's a great option. So let's get back to it. So they're shuffling, you have them let a number come into their mind. Now you could have them say it out loud, but there's a very important reason I don't. And you'll see why at the end. It justifies a very important move. So I think it makes the trick much more magical if they never say it, and it justifies something very important. All right, so they're gonna hand you the deck back, and all you're gonna do is take it and load the card back to the top, flip the deck over and say, here, you know what, actually you hold on to that. I don't even wanna touch it. Okay, it's a very simple move. You're almost making it seem like you didn't mean to take the deck back. So they're probably gonna hand it to you like this. If they do, I'll just flip it in my hand like that, load the card to the top, flip it over and say, actually here, you know what, you hold on to that. I don't even wanna touch it, right? And if you do that at speed, it totally feels like you didn't do anything. You just took the card back and you say, actually, you know what, I don't even wanna touch it. What you've done is you've loaded that card back to the top. It's a great moment, really, really good. So they've just shuffled the deck and now you're set. To them, they've named any card, they've shuffled the deck, and that's where you're at. They're now holding the deck of cards. And you say, whatever number that came to your mind, I want you to deal that number of cards into my hand. So if you're a righty, hold out your left hand and have them deal. So let's say they name 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is great. They do the dealing, okay? Now here's the final move, and this is the gold about this trick in my opinion. The cards are going to presumably be in a bit of a mess. So this is what you're going to say. You're going to bring your hand, your right hand over, and you're going to say, watch, I'm not going to do anything funny. I'm just going to square up these cards. So you're going to come here, you're going to square up, and this finger underneath is going to push their card off into a pinky clip. Okay, so you're just clipping that card here with the pinky, okay? And this is all it looks like from the top. Okay, so again, the cards are in a bit of a mess. You're going to say, watch, I'm not going to do anything funny. And you get that card into a clip. Okay, you might want to turn this a little bit to the left, I suppose. Angle it a bit to the left so you don't, show anything, but it's really well hidden. So then you say, I wasn't counting. How many cards was it you dealt into this pack? 10. You dealt 10 cards, so there should be 10 cards in this deck, right? Okay, I'm not going to touch anything. And the card you said was the 4 of hearts, and you dealt 10 cards here. Flip it over. And it is the 4 of hearts. So that last move is really, again, what I think makes this trick, right? So again, under the justification of just squaring up, not doing anything funny, we're kicking that card over into a clip. And then you say, because they never told you the number, you pretend like you didn't count. I mean, you could count. I don't even bother counting. And you say, so how many cards was it you dealt into this pack? And what you're doing there is you're just stealing these cards and holding this card into a palm, okay? You can even relax. You don't have to hold the thumb back here. You can relax like this. It looks very natural, and it's only for a split second. It's just kind of like this, and then you put it back. What we've done there is we've shifted the card to the top. Now you could, there's a lot of shifts you could do, right? You could literally take it and just put the card right back on top like that. What I was trying to avoid with this, and in some situations that's not a bad idea. If you need to, just quickly get into the shift if you have a lot of people at different angles, and you'll be okay. But I really wanted to come up with something where I never hid this card from view. So what I do, I push that card into palm, the card is in view, and I say, how many cards was it you dealt into this packet? As they're answering, I place this card on top, but only about a little bit less than half. So now I can hold this like this, and you don't see that card covering it, right? And that's really great, because this card is still in view. And they'll say 10. And now what I do, from this position, you can dribble the cards, right? So what you do now is simply say, okay, so there should be 10 cards here. And that's the move. The card's been shifted to the top. So it's brilliant. That card is halfway on top, and we're using the cover of this dribble, right? We could hold on to that card, but at the end, we're just dropping that card along with the rest, and it just looks like a dribble. There's a great visual deception, because you see that top card literally the whole time. If you keep your eye on it, I mean, it still looks like it's the top card that fell, but you've actually changed it. So let's go over that again. You have the cards in a bit of a mess. You say, watch, I won't do anything. I'm just going to square up these cards. How many cards was it again that you dealt into my hand here? 10 cards. So there should be 10 cards here, right? Okay, I won't do anything. You flip that over. And it's the 4 of hearts. Watch out, I tend to curl in this index just out of habit, and it kind of flashes a bit. So just make sure you keep that out there. At the very last minute, all you're doing is just as you get to the end of this dribble, you release everything, and that card will fall out of your hand along with the rest, right? You see how that works? Okay, and that's the shift. So it's a really, really deceptive shift and really, really powerful. And the reason it's so important is because, again, the rules that we're breaking here, they can name any card, they can name any number, they do the shuffling. Yes, I guess we touch the deck for a second after they shuffle, but it's not something they'll remember. And then The biggest thing is that they're dealing into our hands and they're not dealing face up. But the face up thing I don't really think matters, because the second they reveal their card, you can show that all the cards are different. And I'm presuming you would have already shown that already, so that is fine. But the nice thing the shift does is it really doesn't make it feel like anything funny is happening. You have no moment where you're like this, right? Where you have two hands like covering the deck where you could be doing a shift, or you don't have like an obvious pass moment or something like that. So I think this shift is the key to this effect. It's all very, very logical. You're just picking up the deck, taking it out like this. And again, you could put the whole card back on top at this moment and dribble, but the card comes out of view for a second, and that's what I want to avoid here. So it's up to you if you want to do that decision, but just keep in mind you'll have to cover the whole deck like that. So for me, I want it to look like this. They see the deck of cards, they see the deck of cards, they see the top card, they see the top card, all the way to the end where I've done the shift, right? So that is my method for SOHACAAN. So as you can see, super practical, really, really, not that difficult to do. It's just sleight of hand. There's no gimmicks. You can do this as many times as you want. It is a very almost pure feeling, any card, any number. And the routining and the structure of the effect is all super logical. And so I'm gonna go into some other ideas if you don't totally love the whole idea of like, oh, I'm gonna give you a hint and then you go like, oh no, never mind, actually just shuffle it again. If you don't like some of those moments or some of the moments where you feel, where you make it feel like you did something by accident, that's okay. And I'll go into some different ways to do that and a few other sleights you can use instead that work pretty well. But to me, this is the best way. Try it out. Everything's justified. So quickly, they shuffle. They name any card. You say, all right, I'm gonna have you try to guess the position of that card amongst these 52. That card could be anywhere in this deck, but I wanna give you a bit of a hint so you can try to figure out where exactly your card is. Just give you a better idea. So I'm gonna go through the cards one time and you're just gonna try to get a sense for where your card is in the deck. So in this case, I'm using the 2 of diamonds, just picked it randomly. So I call that to the top and I instantly put that in a palm and I say, do you have a bit of an idea? How about now? No, you know what? Let's make this even more magical. If you have an idea of where the card is, it's not as cool. So here, shuffle that. They shuffle, 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 take the cards back and say, actually, you know what? Here, I don't even want to touch these cards. You hold on to them. And then as they were shuffling, you would have said, I want you to think of any number you want. Don't say it out loud. Just start to let the numbers come into your head. Any number between 1 and 52. They have one. You give them the deck. They deal down to whatever number they say into your hand like this. And you're gonna say, watch, I won't do anything funny. In that motion, you kick the card over. Then you say, how many cards was it you dealt into this pile? I wasn't counting. And in that motion, you shift the card to the top. And then you say, okay, so there should be about 22 cards here, right? I won't do anything. You flip it over, you see 2 of diamonds. So that is the effect. Hope you guys love SOHACAAN. Now let's get into some other uses and ideas. Now, let's talk about that shift. Like the reason I love that shift is because it really is inconspicuous. There's no moments of this or, any hiding of the deck. Like I said, you could simply just push that card into clip, pull it up over top really quickly, and it does look nice, right? It totally looks fine, but I don't want to have any moment where it looks like a move is going on. And that's super important because of how fair we want this to feel. They dealt it, and we just want it to feel like we're just holding the cards in our hand. A dribble makes it feel like we have no control over the cards. So the fact that the shift happens during the dribble is really incredible in my opinion. But another good option is to use a spread pass. So how this changes with a spread pass is you're gonna cull that card to the 4th or 5th position. I would probably use the 5th. So let's say they name the, let's go 7 of hearts. So you cull it, and as you're coming to the end, what I like to do is just spread a little bit slower at the end, identify my 4th position, and I can even split the cards and say, did you see your card here? And now, as I close up, I just feed that card into the 5th position, right? So that's really, really good. And then they can deal any number they want. And what we know is that their card is now 5th from the bottom. Okay, so now this time when they've dealt the cards, you say, I wasn't counting. How many cards was it that you dealt into my hand? You spread to the bottom, visually identify that 5th card, and then you just spread pass it as you close, and that is your ACAAN. Now I think that's pretty solid. I just think the other version feels a little bit more fair in my opinion, but if you're a fan of the spread pass and you prefer this one's a little bit less, I guess, angle sensitive because of, you know, you have to kind of have your hand tilted this way a little bit. But on that note, I mean, honestly, guys, you can pretty much do this almost completely surrounded. People really don't pick up on as much as you think, especially when you do it like nice and, you know, in a good rhythm like that. People really will not see it. So that is a great alternative. Using a spread pass, definitely consider that, guys. I just think the other shift is a little bit better. Another idea is to use a marked deck when you do this. Then you could avoid the whole, you know, spreading face up, but it does defeat the purpose of any deck anytime. I mean, if you always use a marked deck, maybe. But then you also need to have a justification for why you spread through to look for the marking. And you need to be quick at reading your marking. So it's pretty quick or pretty hard. But what you could say is, you know, I want you to name any one of these cards you want. They say 4 of hearts, and you say, okay, you could have literally named any card that you want. All these cards are different, as you can see. And hopefully by that point, you've found the card, called it, I guess, to the bottom in this case, and then you could just give it a quick shuffle to the top and go from there. Again, I prefer this method, and I think it's better. I just want to give a talk about if you want to make this feel more like a pure any card, any number, in the sense of like, all we're going to do is have you name a card, name a number, and then deal to that card and reveal. And sort of cutting out that, oh, I'm going to give you a hint of what your card is, and then, you know, oh, actually you shuffle, you know, all of those sort of things. What you could say is, at this moment, instead of doing the hint thing, when they give you the card back, you say, I want you to name any card you want, any one at all, and then they'll name it, and basically you're gonna say, okay, you could name any one of these cards, and you're just gonna say any one is possible. You can see they're all different, and in that motion is when you're gonna execute the call. And it's, instead of drawing attention to the fact that, oh, I want you to see the card, you're basically making this a nothing moment of you just showing them that all the cards are different when you execute the call. I'm working on a really cool system, on a side note, of like an instant index, or an open index is what I think I'm gonna call it. And it's the idea of having access and knowing where any card is, or being able to find any card right in front of the spectator while spreading through a deck and showing them the faces and showing them that you're looking for the card, but without making them realize that you're looking for the card and tracking it. And I've came up with a full system of how you can, you know, get access to any card in a matter of literal seconds without the spectator suspecting it, without them realizing that you're literally just looking for the card in the deck. Without any of that, it just feels like you're saying, okay, all these cards are different. You could have chose any one, and in that you have possession of their card. So I'm still refining it. It's a great principle that I will be teaching soon, and it'll be great for this trick. So you can come back to it when I finally release that. Just a side note. So that's an idea if you don't like the whole like, oh, I want to give you a hint, but I think it's totally justified and it makes sense. And it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're giving it back to them to shuffle, and you're kind of scrapping that idea in the first place. It's just a good justification for getting their card and why we're going through the deck. And if you're a little slower at the call, you can do that moment where you kind of pause on their card and you can easily still cull it without them realizing. And the final thing that I think is very valuable, and this is something that I do actually use, I perform this in exactly how I showed you guys in the breakdown, because that is the best way in my opinion. But once in a while I will use this, and it's a no palming variation. Just if the situation, you know, I have a lot of people around, or I'm at like, got a larger group and I don't feel like I want to risk the palm, I do have a way for no palm, which is great as well. So it starts the same. You have them name any card while they're shuffling, and all you're doing here is selling that first shuffle that they did as them having shuffled the deck after naming the card, and essentially, right? So instead of giving them back the deck to shuffle, this is the time where they're shuffling. So they're shuffling the cards. You have them name any card. They say the 4 of hearts. You say, okay, perfect. Let me see the deck. Now that card could be anywhere in the deck. I'm going to try to have you guess what position you think it's in. But I'm going to give you a bit of a hint because I'm a nice guy. Try to give you a bit of a chance to guess this. So I'll go through the cards quickly. Just see if you can see your card and know exactly where it is. So in this, you flip the deck over because we don't need the palm. Then you're just going to start shuffling the deck and saying, now do you have an idea of where your card might be? And all I'm doing is a very simple top stock shuffle where I'm shuffling the bottom and then throwing the last bit on top. So it keeps that 4 of hearts in position. But you can do any false shuffle and you're kind of not bringing attention to it. You know, you just showed them about where the card is and now you're shuffling. So in their mind, they're going to be like, well, now I have no idea. But we don't need to bring attention to that, right? We don't need to say, oh, I'm gonna shuffle it now. So you just say, do you have a bit of an idea where it is? They might point out, well, no, now that you shuffled. And you say, okay, well, that's fine. I actually want to make this a bit more magical. That's why I'm giving it a mix. But again, we don't want to bring too much attention to the fact that we're shuffling, because we want them to remember that they were the ones who really shuffled. So what I do is I give it one good riffle where I keep their card on top and give it a shuffle. And at that point, you know, they saw their card in the middle of the deck, so they assume it's still in the middle. You know, they saw it when we were doing this before we called it. And then the fact that they shuffled and that we shuffled and make it feel like very sort of like it doesn't matter, like we have no idea where that card is, even though it's on top, is going to just, for them, make it feel like they shuffled, I gave them a hint, and then the card was further lost into the deck. All they're gonna remember is that the card was lost. It doesn't feel like control, because this moment doesn't feel like we're control. It feels like we're helping them, and that's all they pay attention to if you execute the call right. And then a few more shuffles. Doesn't matter who it comes from, but it definitely does make this trick work, okay? Without the palm. You don't need to give it back to them for another shuffle here, because they've already shuffled the deck, and that's kind of what we're going for here, right? And then you simply say, here, take that deck, deal to whatever number you want, and into your hand, and the rest is exactly the same. You do the shift, take it here, boom, and their card is on top. All right, guys, that is SOHACAAN, and it is so my favorite ACAAN. That was bad. It's so my favorite ACAAN. I love it because of its practicality, because of how easy it is, and because of I can do it literally anywhere, any deck. I can do it with anyone's deck of cards. And it's no memory work, no gimmicks, none of that stuff. And it feels just so powerful. Use the tips. Biggest thing, recap your effect as it's happening. I know a lot of magicians are like, oh, don't say everything that you're doing word for word. In an ACAAN, you want to say, you shuffled, you named any card, you named any number. Think about how impossible it would be for that card to be at that number after you shuffled. That is how you get people captivated by this presentation, because they can feel how amazing it is. So practice that shift. I think it's a really crafty little shift. Very justified shift, and it really, once you see it and you get it and you kind of do it a few times, you'll see how it really doesn't feel like anything happened, which is exactly what we need for this type of trick. Again, if you're doing the no palming variation, the biggest thing is to just make them feel like the shuffle they did at the beginning was very important. As you go through this, you don't draw any attention to the fact that you controlled the card, and you say, all right, do you know about where it is? I'm gonna give it a bit of a shuffle. Just actually, I wanna make this a little bit more magical, right? You can throw the cards on the table. That's a great subtlety. It makes it look like you don't really care. And all you're doing is retaining that card on top, and you're good to go. You know, they'll feel like they did shuffle the deck, and so you can still get away with this. A little bit of, a little tiny bit of a downgrade on the effect, but nothing that should be noticeable by your spectator. So I hope you guys love this any card at any number and try it, because it is so good. And from a practicality standpoint, one of the best in my opinion. I don't think it gets too much better than this, and that is why this is my go-to when someone wants to see any card at any number. So yeah, this video is super special to me. I don't want to end it, but I guess I will end it here. I want to thank everyone who watched this video, everyone who's going to perform this. Let me know what you guys think. Drop me a comment. You know, yeah, let me know what you guys think about this effect. If you, you know, I know we all love ACAAN, so let me know what you think. This is one of my favorite ACAANs. I have a couple other great ACAANs that I came up with that are awesome for different reasons, but this is the most practical. So, you know, go practice this and go perform it. I'm telling you, it's killer. So with all that said, drop me a comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.